Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 127 of Crunch Time. I'm going to be your host for today's episode. I am Tanner Dislin, and as always, I am joined by Sam Godsey, and we are the N326 duo. Sam, we no longer have college basketball.
Yeah, it's brutal. To be honest with you, Tanner, college sports, the popular ones at least have come to an end. We're in that weird period where NBA is winding down. NHL is also winding down, but with baseball season, both MLB and college baseball have been playing for a little bit now. But yeah, it's definitely weird not having college sports, especially college basketball, after the grind that is March Madness.
Yeah, this is really tough. No college basketball, as we said. Baseball is in that weird spot. I feel like for the first week, maybe the casual baseball fan will be like, okay, it's a new sport. It's starting up. You get to see some players on new teams you'll watch. But after that week, it's like, okay, then it kind of fades to the background. And then maybe they'll pick it up again as October comes around. So that's kind of fading fast. In the NBA, you have the end of the regular season, which I mean, we talk ad nauseum about the regular season of the NBA and how just really boring it is. Different takes. But yes, how very, very boring it is. And then now, even as the regular season is coming to a close, I feel like in most sports, it's like, oh, the push to the playoffs. But in the NBA, the teams who are like fringe playoff teams don't want to make the playoffs. Usually, they want to fall into the lottery. You remember what the Mavericks did? I think that was just last year, maybe, where like they basically tanked to get into the lottery, and they had a protected pick. So by doing that, they kept their first round pick. It's really crazy how the NBA has kind of built a culture of not giving a crap about the regular season. So that's what we have for the next like week and a half until playoffs start, and maybe that can turn things around a little bit. But it's a little bit of a rough spot if you're a sports fan. However, we did just get off of the best postseason in all of sports. So that obviously is what we will be talking about today, putting a bow on the both men's and women's college basketball seasons. And stay tuned. Later in the episode, we are joined by a special guest to talk about some of the head coaching carousel that's going around. And if you have listened to episodes before, I think you can guess who that special guest is. But before we get to all of that, we, of course, need to start with our winners and losers. So, Sam, who is your winner of the episode?
Yeah, my winner, Tanner, is going to be Nike. So obviously everyone knows about the solar eclipse that happened yesterday. Nike dropped a fire advertisement, tweeted the total eclipse has just begun. And it actually revealed Victor Wembanyama's new logo. Have you seen this logo, Tanner?
I have not. This is the first I'm hearing about all of this.
He actually drew it, and it's an alien because that man is a alien. Super cool. I didn't know he actually signed with Nike back in France, but if you haven't checked out the video, it's super cool. Definitely well done by Nike.
Wow. Yeah, I'm looking at it now. Like the alien into a basketball. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That drew himself too. So super cool.
Yeah, that is pretty darn cool. For my winner, I'm gonna go with Wayne Randazzo, Sam. We all know Wayne Randazzo, right? Of course. Wayne Randazzo is the play-by-play announcer for the Los Angeles Angels. And he was actually previously a radio announcer for the Mets. So I am very familiar with Wayne, and I've listened to him announce a lot of games, and he's very good at it. But in the most recent series for the Angels, he went on a little rant that just so perfectly summed up every baseball fan in the world. And honestly, I was deciding whether or not I was going to make the MLB a loser or Wayne Randazzo a winner, because I didn't know, but I obviously decided to do the latter. It all stems from the MLB retroactively by a week, mind you, 7 full days, changing a single to Nolan Shanuel. I'm not sure if I said that right, but he hit a single a week ago, and that kept alive his on base streak, in which he had reached base safely in 36 straight games. Fun fact about Nolan Shanuel, he has played in 36 MLB games. It was the longest streak in MLB history of on base to start one's career. Well, that's no longer because the MLB a week later went back, changed a single to an error, and you do not get credit for reaching base if you do so on an error, since that was a mistake by the defense. So that 36 game streak gone because the MLB decided it needed to do this. I mean, one of those where it's just unfathomable how they decided this was a good idea, especially when it takes away this record for this rookie. And then you keep going down the list of recent storylines from the MLB. You have this, right? You have the jerseys that are just so ridiculous. The pants are see-through. There's a video that went today.
I saw that.
I think it was a Tigers player.
Yeah.
Who running home, slid home.
Just complete pant rip.
Complete rip. I think it was literally on the seams of where there's commonly a stripe down the side, just like tore apart completely. Like it was sewn by someone in a sweatshop. I guess it probably was, honestly. But like it was sewn by a 5-year-old in a sweatshop somewhere. Yeah. Like it just so cheaply made, and everyone hates them. And we're still just running these stupid uniforms out. Then you have the whole Ohtani thing, and it's like, is the sport's biggest star gambling? Who knows? We haven't had anything from any sort of discourse from the MLB and in that on that storyline. And then you have the A's fiasco, where a city that has loved this team for so long, and a team that has been successful throughout the history of it, throughout its franchise history, obviously not so much lately, but when fans stopped going because the owner was a piece of crap who didn't want to pay for a quality product, he said, F you fans, I'm going to move the team. And now they're playing in Sacramento for a year. And you have like these owners who don't care about winning. And it's just a goddamn disaster.
Yeah.
And it's bad story after bad story after bad story. It's really getting annoying. And to put the cherry on top, every single good pitcher in the MLB is having Tommy John surgery. At this current moment, Shane Bieber went under the knife for Tommy John. Spencer Strider, who was one of the better pitchers in the National League a year ago, a front runner for the Cy Young Award this year, he has elbow damage. It's not quite been declared that he's getting Tommy John yet, but it looks like it's trending that way. Garrett Cole is currently on the IL. I'm not sure if that's elbow or shoulder, but still, he is not currently pitching. And as of today, Framber Valdez for the Astros, another key pitcher for one of the best teams in the MLB. Yeah, he had elbow soreness and he got placed on the injured list. Sandy Alcantara had Tommy John. He won the AL Cy Young the NL Cy Young 2 years ago. Yuri Perez, another Marlin who was like one of the anyone who's played MLB The Show knows all about Yuri Perez. He went under the knife as well. So that's like 10 pitchers who have elbow injuries, and I mean 4 of the top pitchers in the league are all injured right now, and it's just added to the list.
Yeah, that's brutal.
But somehow all that negativity, that was my winner, because Wade Randazzo did sum it up perfectly. And if you haven't listened to it, I definitely implore you to. He put it much more succinctly and much better than I did. But speaking of all that negativity, Sam, let's turn it around and look at the losers.
Yeah, my loser, Tanner, could be wrapped up in the segment that we've done, and that's Mad About Iowa. I'm going to talk about some former college basketball, women's basketball players. Let's kick it off with Lynette Woodard.
Yes.
She held the scoring record before Caitlin Clark broke it. Yes, she did break it, but
breaking news, she broke it.
Before the Final Four, She basically came out and said Caitlin Clark didn't break my record, which doesn't make any sense because she clearly did. And I know that I'm pretty sure the 3-pointer wasn't around when Lynette Woodard played, but it's just super weird because Iowa brought her to the game. Caitlin Clark broke the record. And it's just super weird that she is now backtracking on basically it's just a whole weird situation. Then we moved on to one of the weirdest beefs, talking about Diana Taurasi. She obviously they had the Taurasi and Bird telecast of the tournament, and I think it was just the Final Four. But Taurasi, so this is just a timeline of one game of Taurasi's comments about Caitlin Clark. So she was asked if Gino would let Caitlin Clark shoot the logo. Diana Taurasi, hell no. Like, he didn't even let us dribble. We were playing triangle, pass, screen away, pinch post. No chance you're doing that. That's just not the way he teaches basketball. Okay.
Incredibly
Weird.
narcissistic, by the way. Just like
weird.
Just like, hell no, we played actual basketball, not this crap. Like, yeah.
And then this is where things just get super weird. So obviously it was Beckers versus Clark in the Final Four. The question was, who you taking, Beckers or Clark? And Sue Bird's like, as good of a player as Paige Becker is, there's no denying how good Caitlin Clark is and what she's done for a game. And narcissistic Taurasi says, I'm taking Paige. Next question.
Yeah. She didn't provide an explanation. Almost like she didn't have one.
And then she doubled down because Sue Bird asked if she'd take Beckers over Clark as the number one overall pick in this upcoming WNBA draft. And she said, absolutely. Weird.
Yeah.
Another talking about elevating the women's sport and then crashing it down because, let's be honest, Tanner, Caitlin Clark has done more for the women's game ever than Diana Taurasi has. And then she adds another layer on this hate cake. Reality is coming. So this is about Caitlin Clark coming to the WNBA. Reality is coming. You look superhuman playing against some 18-year-olds, but you're going to come play with some grown women that have been playing professional basketball for a long time. Like, duh. So there is going to be some adjustments, but let's be honest here, Tanner. The college basketball game right now has more WNBA talent in college than it does in the WNBA. This is the most stacked talent-wise the women's college game has been, and I think the top talent of women's basketball in college right now is better than Diana Taurasi ever played in college. And I don't think it's really that close because let's just look at who Caitlin Clark had to beat to get to the championship. She had to beat did they play? No.
Well, she had to beat at a minimum. She had to beat Angel Reese, Flau'jae Johnson, Haley Van Lith.
Yep.
Paige Beckers, who, by the way, just a couple seconds ago was better than Caitlin Clark, but now that Caitlin beat her, it's quote just another 18-year-old. And Aaliyah Edwards and Nika Mule, who was one of the best defenders in the nation. Those were all people she had to beat just in those in the Elite Eight and Final Four, and then obviously played South Carolina, who is top to bottom talent everywhere.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just
super weird.
Yapping.
Now the Phoenix Mercury, however you say that word, is now advertising their game against the Fever as the GOAT versus the Rook. Reminder, Caitlin Clark has not been drafted yet.
Caitlin Clark has not been drafted. The most anticipated game of Diana Taurasi's career is against someone that she just spent 40 minutes talking down upon. I get it. Like, I get why they're mad, because, I mean, obviously they're good basketball players. When I say they, I'm lumping in all of the current day WNBA players that are talking down on Caitlin Clark. I'm just kind of lumping them into one group. I get why they're mad. They're obviously very good at basketball. They weren't good enough to make people care. It's just how it happened. And now Caitlin, with her play style, her skill, all of that stuff, people care now. I can see why they're like, wait, what the hell? Why didn't you care when I played? I get why they're mad. It's just really funny to see them being just incredibly jealous of a star and someone who transcended the game, and it just did so in a way that they couldn't. And like, I get the jealousy, I get all of it. It's just a really funny look. And
especially after there's been comments about bringing WNBA to the next level. Like, why don't we get the respect NBA and college basketball players do on the men's side? Well, when you have a superstar, the face of the sport, period, you tear her down and bully her, basically, which is just weird.
Yeah, like do you think if they went up and interviewed Jokic and was like, "Yo, what do you think about Zach Edey?" and Jokic just went like, "Nah, man, no, he's not good. He's not good. No, I do that. Like, it's easy when you're doing it against 18-year-olds." Like,
did he make a comment about how he likes watching Zach Edey?
Yeah,
like, that's like I thought.
It said something like, and it's just like, it's night and day how this is. And like, I get,
or no, it's DJ Burns, but
it's DJ Burns,
same
difference. Yeah, same difference there. It's just like, it's and people, and what I've heard is that, like, people trying to defend this, saying, oh, in men's sports, NBA players don't welcome the rookies with open arms, and like, yeah, they do. It's literally, yeah, they do. Like, they do workouts with each other all the time. They talk as Jokic talked about DJ Burns all the time
on the court. Maybe no.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, on the court, you know how it gets on the court. But yeah, Caitlin literally has not stepped on the court yet, and it's already happening, man. It's unreal. And then the Lynette Woodard situation. I mean, that's just really disappointing. Iowa, I mean, her story of, doing so before women's sports were recognized in the NCAA, and having her record not be recognized for so long, and Iowa taking the time to fly her out and bring her all this recognition to someone who no one knew. Like, it's just, it sucks that no one knew you. You were obviously very good. You didn't deserve that. But the simple fact is that no one knew who you were until the University of Iowa brought you into their building and propped you up as this star in the game, and it celebrated you. And then to turn around and just completely 180 on that is just ridiculously annoying and really disappointing to see. And then, of course, she backtracked immediately because she knew she was wrong. And that's not what I meant when the clip is clear as day. My record has not been broken. She was like, "Oh, you just can't." I meant you just can't. You can't compare across eras. Shut up. I know what you meant. But it's really disappointing to see, and I mean, maybe it's all part of the plan to make us all interested in the WNBA next year, and hope maybe that some of these rivalries will manifest in some pretty hard fought battles. But for my loser, I'm going to go back to the baseball diamond. This is someone who has had one of the most confusing careers thus far, and that's Alek Manoah, Sam. I think I even made him
two-time loser.
I made him a loser last year, right? Yep. Yeah, because in 2022, Alek Manoah was far and away the most promising pitcher in all of baseball. He finished third in the Cy Young voting in the American League. And this is his second year in the league when he did all this. He finished with a 2.24 ERA, 16-7. I mean, the numbers were across the board really impressive. And finished third in the Cy Young, and thought, wow, this could be a really big piece for the Blue Jays. Last year, he hit big time trouble. He went 3-9 with an ERA of almost 6. Things did not go well. Then he got injured, and everyone was like, you know what? Let him get healthy. He'll come back next year. Well, he just started his rehab in single A. And in a game against Dunedin, Dunedin. Would you say Dunedin or Dunedin?
Dunedin, baby. He done did it again.
He done did it again. That's the way to say it. He done did it again because he pitched 2 2/3 innings and gave up 11 runs on 10 hits. Yikes.
Yeah.
Yikes. And I mean, will he figure it out? The only time will tell, but it's been a rough 2 years for one of what looked like it was going to be one of the game's best and most promising stars. And this is like single A rehab start. This is like people who just got drafted in the 30th round of the MLB draft, putting up 11 hits or 11 runs on 10 hits.
Yeah.
Not good. Not good at all.
It's tough.
Very much so. But you ready to talk some hoops, man?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. So we'll start out on the women's game because their Final Four and championship games were before the men's. So we'll go
also better.
We'll go in that and better. But we will start out in the Final Four. The first game, NC State and South Carolina. Sam, the Gamecocks made quick work of NC State. In the second half, first half was close.
Yeah, I mean, it was night and day between these two teams. South Carolina looked like the better team throughout. I know it was a close game in the first half, but we all knew what was going to happen that second half. And yeah.
Do you have a breakout of scoring by quarter?
No, I
good,
do not.
Good. Don't look it up. In the third quarter, there were a total of 35 points scored. How many do you think were scored by South Carolina? How many do you think were scored by NC State? 35 total.
30 South Carolina 5.
30-5. That is so close. It was 29-6 in the third quarter. North Carolina State scored 6 points in the third quarter. And then if you add the fourth, which South Carolina subbed out some of their players. So the second half total was 46-20.
Yeah.
So yeah, an 18-point win in the second half, and I believe they were up 1 going into half. So, yeah, really promising start for the Wolfpack, but South Carolina just too good. I mean, Camila Cardoso, she in classic post fashion, she had 22. She had 11 rebounds, got that double-double, shot 10 for 12.
Yeah.
Remarkably efficient. Top to bottom, absolute domination in that second half. You got anything more to say?
Not much, man.
Should we just move on to the main event? It was Iowa. It was UConn. It was Paige Beckers, who is apparently better, but also just an 18-year-old versus Caitlin Clark. And the Hawkeyes, Sam, win 71-69. A very close game. Neither team really played their best basketball. And, of course, ended in a controversial call to some.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll get into that later. But the question surrounding this Iowa team was, what if Caitlin Clark doesn't go crazy like she always does? And to be honest with you, Taryn, that's what happened this game. Yeah, you look at the field goal percentage. It's not awful. 90% of the league would take her shooting percentage. 3 for 11 from 3. That's crazy. You don't see that from Caitlin Clark. 9 rebounds, 7 assists. She is doing it without scoring. She did have 21 points, but it seemed to not be her best scoring game, and that's kind of what people associate with Clark with. But the supporting cast, I mean, Stokey, let's talk about her game. 9 for 12, 23 points. She's had some ups and downs throughout this tournament, and she showed out when the team needed her most. When Kate Martin, another supporting cast member, 11 points, 8 rebounds. Just the supporting cast came out to play. Gabby Marshall didn't shoot great this game, but she's not known as a knockdown shooter as she kind of was last year. She's definitely a defensive minded player. And it was really interesting to see this team play the way they did when Caitlin wasn't knocking down the crazy shots we're used to seeing her.
Yeah, no, I think you absolutely nailed it. The key for this game was Hannah Stuelke for Iowa. I mean, in the first half, she put up scoring numbers, but I didn't think she played her best half of basketball.
Yeah.
Some missed assignments, some trouble rebounding, fumbling the ball a little bit. But in the second half, she was excellent. She was where Iowa's offense started and stopped with her. Kaylin Clark, we mentioned the shooting struggles, obviously still dishing with 7 assists, and she also had 9 rebounds. So as bad of a game we're talking about, she was, of course, on triple-double watch. But 7 assists, a lot of those to Stuelke in transition, probably the best rim runner in women's college basketball, maybe even all of college basketball. Yeah, she's really fast, and she gets up the court, and Kaylin finds her a lot, and that was the key in this one. Stuelke was excellent. But you mentioned another name, Sam, Kate Martin, 2 of the biggest buckets in the game, where when Iowa needed it most, a couple turnaround little baby jump shots. She also did have the biggest turnover in the game when things got dicey, because she didn't realize that she could take the extra step, go in the backcourt and grab the ball, instead tried to save it for some reason and threw it right to UConn, who hit a big 3 to cut it to 2. But yeah, the story of this one for Iowa was Stuelke. Clark's still going for 21, even though she didn't have her best night. And then you look at UConn. I mean, Nika Mule did an excellent job on Caitlin. She played all 40 minutes. She was hobbling, just a really gutsy performance from her. Paige, I mean, not her best game either. Paige and Caitlin, neither of them played very well by their own standards. I mean, a combined 14 for 35 from the field. Not good. So I don't think either Iowa or UConn was happy the way they played this game. But of course, we do have to talk about the screen at the end of the game.
Yeah. Obviously, the talk of this game was that moving screen set called with like 10 seconds left. And everyone's saying you can't call that in down the stretch with 10 seconds left. Yeah, you can. It was a moving screen. No, it's just funny. It seems that this always happens. I know the prime example was with the Chiefs earlier. They had that sweet play and basically said you can't call a flag and to make such a great play. But no one was denying the fact it was a flag. Same situation here. Everyone knew that was a moving screen. Honestly, I think her first screen was just as egregious. I think that should have been called. So they did kind of let her play through the foul. But if you do it 2 times back to back, it's hard to not call it. Yeah, it sucks, but it's a good call. No one's gonna argue that. But I'm just conflict because I'd like to just see him play it out. But it was a bad call.
If you're disappointed because it's a little anticlimactic, okay, I get that. However, if you're on they can't call that side of things, it's just like it's one of those where it's why? Because are you saying that you would rather, like, instead of Iowa winning on the correct call, you'd rather have UConn have a chance to win on the incorrect call?
Yeah.
What sense does that make at all? And even more so, Sam, one thing that also I don't quite get is the idea that it was ticky-tack, the idea of a ticky-tack, because I don't think there is a ticky-tack illegal screen, because an illegal screen is a different foul than other fouls.
Yeah.
Like if you're hand checking or you those can be called pretty ticky-tack. But the nature of a screen, the rules are why the rules are, because a screen can be a potentially very advantageous play and unstoppable if you do it illegally, if you move. So like the material advantage gained from a moving screen, like that doesn't translate to other fouls.
Yeah.
There is no ticky-tack moving screen. A moving screen is a moving screen. And I mean, maybe the defender of the ball handler gets hit harder by different types of moving screens, but the advantage gain is pretty much the same without it. Doesn't matter the moving screen. So you absolutely have to call it. I think ESPN made some interesting choices with a Iowa UConn game with two UConn graduates, and a company who's headquartered in Bristol, Connecticut, or their studio is in Bristol, Connecticut, maybe not headquartered, and they just seemed to only show the slow motion angle where it looked like it was clean, and when you saw it in fast motion and the other angle, it's very clear that she moved and was like almost doing the cha-cha slide the way she slid to the left. So I mean, obviously it's you can take our word for it. I don't know if you think we're biased because we're Iowa fans, but it was pretty clearly the right call to us, and one that had to be made. But another person I do want to shout out in this game, someone who not a lot of people had on their bingo card as making a big time oh my gosh, I can't contribution, dude. I lost all English words in my brain. But KK Arnold for UConn, the freshman, came in and gave 14 big points and was rather efficient in it too, shooting 60% from the field. So I mean, just watching the game, it felt like she even had more than 14. Her fingerprints were all over this game. But Iowa ends up victorious, and that set up the national championship game on Sunday, in which South Carolina handled Iowa and beat them by 12.
Yeah, I mean, even as Iowa fans, we kind of knew we were playing with house money going into this one. It was so clear that South Carolina was the better team in this one, just all over the floor. It was impressive. There's a reason South Carolina went undefeated this year. They were by far the best team all year, especially in this one. But it seems the Hawkeyes just kind of ran out of gas late in this one. It seemed it was back and forth majority of the game, but down the stretch, that South Carolina team just kind of ran with it and got a huge championship.
Yeah, I mean, the easy answer, obviously, is to say, oh, haha, back-to-back national championships. Caitlin Clark can't get it done. Iowa can't get it done. This was a classic example of the best team in the game was better at all positions except for one. Best player, obviously, on Iowa, but the best team in the game. They have the best rebounders, the best shooters, the best defenders, the best all of it. And they took care of business. There is absolutely zero shame in losing to this South Carolina basketball team. They went undefeated, in case you didn't know. 38-0. They were unbeatable. Not a single soul beat them. It is crazy how many people are talking about a choke or any of that, because South Carolina was unbelievable. You go look at the box score. I mean, what jumps out is Tessa Johnson, 19. She shot 7 for 11, 2 for 2 from deep. I'm just going to say the last name, Pow Pow. She didn't miss early on. I think she ended up 3 for 4.
She was smoking.
3 for 4 from deep, but
she could not miss.
She couldn't miss in the first half, and that's when Iowa jumped out to their early lead. So they needed that 3-point shooting, which she delivered on. I mean, Cardoso.
There was no answer.
No answer for Cardoso. I mean, the tournament and the Final Four's most outstanding player. There was no answer, top to bottom, and of course, the box score isn't going to show. This is how you're really going to be able to tell who watched the game and who's just a box score looker, is how they thought Raven Johnson played in this game, because she shot 1 for 11. She played 37 minutes, shot 1 for 11, and had 3 points.
Yeah.
She was one of the best players on the floor for South Carolina. we can argue the semantics of did she lock down Caitlin, but Caitlin still had 30. The fact of the matter is she played excellent defense on Caitlin Clark. Call it lockdown, call it say you can't, whatever you want to call it. Caitlin was 10 for 28. Yes, she had 30 points on 28 shots. That is exactly the type of inefficiency you need from Caitlin to beat Iowa.
Yeah.
You have to make the other people beat them. And Iowa shot 40% from the field, 40% from three. It seemed like they missed so many layups. I mean, the rim pressure from Cardoso potentially blocking shots. Man, Iowa just missed so many easy buckets, and you just can't do that when you're playing the best team in the country.
Yeah.
And that's what happened.
Simple as that. But you cannot take away from what Caitlin Clark has done this season. I don't know if you've seen this chart, Tanner. Have you seen this chart?
Mm-hmm.
So we'll share it on our Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it. It's a XY graph. On the Y axis you have assists, and on the X axis you have points, and is 9,718 or 719 with Caitlin Clark D1 college hoopers. No, it's not. It's men and women's combined. If you look at the graphic from like 0 to 750 points to 0 to about 200 assists, there's a giant clump of players. Then you scroll down 950 to like 100 assists. You have guys like Zach Edey, Juju Watkins, Paige Buckers, and Dalton Connect is another one in that general area. And then you go to the far end of the chart and you have Caitlin Clark, 1,200 plus assists and 350 in a league of her own, both on the men and women's side. What she's done for this game, I mean, I want to really shout out Dawn Staley in probably the greatest moment. She gives props to Caitlin Clark. She said, and I quote, "I want to personally thank Caitlin Clark for lifting up our sport. She carried a heavy load for our sport. She's going to lift that league in regards to WNBA up. You are one of the goats of our game, and we appreciate you."
Yeah, I mean, truly not enough can be said about Dawn Staley.
Yeah.
I mean, just from a coaching standpoint, I mean, last year the tough loss to Iowa. I mean, in the past 3 years, they've lost 3 games.
3 games.
In the past 2 years, they've lost 1 game, and that was in the Final Four. It's insane the run that this South Carolina team is on, and they lost a lot of people after last year, namely Aaliyah Boston, who went number 1 overall in the WNBA draft. So yeah, she's pretty good at the sport. South Carolina lost her among others, and it just didn't matter. She retooled. No. I mean, the team was focused. They were on a mission. Not enough can be said about the job she did in assembling the team and coaching the team, and not enough can be said about the team itself, because like I said, they played great defense. They shot the ball well. Their offense was great. They were dominant inside. Just everything you can say about a basketball team, you can say about this South Carolina team.
Yeah.
And to put a bow on it, I think the best way, like, it doesn't mean it doesn't suck. You know, all of this we're talking about how just the better team won. And you know what? Sometimes that happens in sports. Doesn't mean it doesn't suck. But the best way I can put it is I get made fun of a lot by you and Keegan, that whenever my team loses a big game, the first thing I do is I go in my room and I take off the shirt I'm wearing. I take off the jersey I'm wearing, the hat I'm wearing, because I don't want to wear it. On Sunday, I did not take off my Iowa stuff. I was pretty darn proud to wear that in back-to-back championship game appearances for Iowa and Caitlin Clark and company. So it sucks, but and it sucks we're never going to see her in an Iowa uniform again. But real special stuff that she did for the university and for women's game as a whole. So, uh, yeah, that's all I have to say about the
Yeah.
women's tournament.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, just when you thought Caitlin Clark could bring more eyes to the women's game, she does it again. 18.7 million tuned into the national
That
championship.
too, yeah.
Want to throw that fact out there, but yeah, Caitlin Clark, it's been a pleasure watching you. I'll be the first one to admit I did not watch women's basketball till you came upon the scene. Um, Hats off to you for a great career and go kill it in the next one.
Yeah, me neither. And maybe that's egg on our face for not watching the women's game before, but it's just a testament to your ability, your draw, and you are one of one. You are the greatest athlete in the history of the University of Iowa.
Facts.
So, with all of that being said, let's go to the men's tournament, Sam.
Yeah.
Because we'll start in the Final Four on this one. You're going to notice two of the same teams, of course, NC State and UConn, both making the Final Four in men's and women's. We'll start with the first game, NC State Purdue. And all I have to say is,
Yeah, exactly. Absolute domination by Purdue. Zach Edey kind of took care of business in this one. Made DJ Burns basically do absolutely nothing. NC State did have a injury early on, like 12 minutes in the game, kind of hurt their offensive production, but you're in the Final Four, get it together. Pitiful performance by NC State, and Purdue took care of business pretty handedly. Probably one of the most boring Final Four games we've had in recent memory.
man, he said pitiful. Not happy with the Wolfpack. Yeah, I mean, it was just one of those games where when you have these dominant games, and so just a lot of the times the score matches the dominance, and you can sometimes enjoy one team just kicking ass and being incredibly efficient. Um, this game just wasn't that. Like it never felt like NC State. I mean, maybe outside of the first like 10, 15 minutes in the first half,
Yeah.
but it was a 6 point game at halftime. It felt like it was 15
Yeah.
the way this was going. And obviously the injury to O'Connell did not help that. Both teams kind of struggled to score. The game soared under NC State only with 50 points in the game. I guess you got to credit Purdue's defense. I mean, Zach Edey was the leading scorer with 20. The next in throughout all of the game, there were 1, 2, 3. There were 5 people in double figures. There just was not much scoring. It was really slow paced, not a great shooting game. I mean, Purdue shot 40% from the field, and NC State shot 37% from the field. Just not great basketball. And when that happens, the team with the more dominant big man, usually the better presence inside, wins. And that's certainly what happened in this game. And it sucks that this is the way it ended for NC State. But take a bow. I mean, it was an awesome run, so much fun, I mean, it's dating back all the way to the conference tournaments.
Yeah, absolutely. Nothing to hang your head down if you're a Wolfpack fan. No one expected you to be in this position. They made one of the best runs in recent college basketball history. So definitely fun to watch, but he just ran into Giant himself.
No doubt about it. So we'll move on to the next game. This was UConn Bama. Let me tell you just some statistics here. Alabama shot 50% from three, or just under 50% from three, 48 to be exact, and they lost by 14.
Yeah, I mean, this just shows you how dominant UConn has been all game. It seemed like there was a chance Bama could get done in that first half, only down by 4 at halftime. It seemed to be going to be a battle. And then UConn became UConn again and kind of took over from then on. But like Bama didn't really play that bad. I mean, Sears had 24, Nelson had 19. I mean, Estrada had 13. It wasn't a bad performance by Bama. It just they ran into the absolute buzzsaw that is UConn.
I mean, I think that's the story of the game. This was a dream start for Alabama. At halftime, they were shooting like 70, 80% from three. I think we were like either 8 for 11 or 7 for 11.
Yeah.
Like the team did not miss from three, and they were down 4. Like at no point were you like, uh-oh, Alabama. They were playing good basketball. They were playing good offensive basketball. They were making shots. Not enough can be said about Mark Sears. Their point guard was excellent all tournament long, an absolute dog. He ended with 24. He was excellent this game. I mean, Grant Nelson with 19, as you said, 15 rebounds. Like this was the recipe for Alabama to win. This is how they've won every game they've played this year, shooting lights out of the ball, playing elite offense, and skating by on defense. And it just didn't work against UConn. They were the most dominant team in college basketball, and that did not change today. It's crazy, or today, this game, it's crazy how that works. We talked about how boring some of that NC State and Purdue was. All 5 starters from UConn were in double figures. All 5.
Yeah. Dominance.
And even then, this game, at least to me, felt like it was the, in some points, it was the anti-NC State Purdue, where you looked up and it may have been an 8-point lead, but you felt like the way Alabama was shooting that they could get back in it immediately.
Yeah.
Well, the other way, a 6-point lead for Purdue felt like it was 20. This one was the anti-version of that, also up and down the floor, fun offense. But in the end, there's just no stopping the UConn train. And they take down Alabama, which set up the national championship. UConn and Purdue, easily the 2 best teams throughout the season in college basketball. I think we got that in both the men's and the women's game, which was pretty awesome. And guess what, Sam? Stop me if you heard this before. UConn was too dominant.
Yeah, I mean, personally, Tanner, I think it was one of Purdue's better performance throughout. I was like, oh, this is why Edie and company are here. Edie was looking dominant, and Dan Hurley said, all right, I'll let Edie score 28, 30 points. No one else is going to score, though. And that's exactly what happened. I think he had 37 of their 63 or something like that.
37 of 60.
Absolutely incredible game plan from Hurley and the Huskies. But once
62% of points.
Once again, man, that UConn team, man, unbelievably good, dominant. Whatever positive adjective you can use, probably can be associated with this UConn Huskies team. It seemed like, at least in the second half, it was like a 10-15 game throughout second half. And you're like, oh, Purdue still got a chance. No. The way they're playing, it seemed like it was a 50-point lead for UConn. I mean, it was just an ass kicking. Pardon my French, but that's how it is.
No doubt about it, Sam. What was the MO on this Purdue team? It was, I think I even said it on the show. It was, when are they the best? Why you can't double Zach Edey is when you give those shooters shots, they will win. That's how they win games. And as you said, that is exactly what Hurley took out of the game. Purdue shot 1 for 7 from 3. 1 for 7 in the entirety of the game. Fletcher Lawyer.
Wow. I did not realize it was that crazy.
Fletcher Lawyer, one of their most important players, one of their most important wing players, skunked 0 points in 30 minutes, 0 for 5 from the field. somebody other than Zach Edey needed to do something. Zach Edey was very good in this game, Sam. And obviously, I think this was just watching him. It was his most impressive game I've seen with clinging on him, a 7-2 guy. He was very creative in the way he scored. Of course, he did have that hook, but using some up and unders, drawing some fouls that way.
It was impressive.
It was really impressive to see. And very rarely will you see me have good things to say about Zach Edey, but he was very good in this game. The rest of Purdue was awful. Braden Smith, he did have 12, shot 4 for 12. Braden Smith and Zach Edey combined, I mean, obviously we have the stat of Zach Edey with 37, Braden Smith with 12. That's 49 of 60.
Yikes.
49 of 60. That means that there were 11 points not scored by those two. Yeah, and the only bench points for Purdue came off of a pretty sweet putback dunk.
That was sick.
Say so myself. It was sick, but those were the only 2 points off the bench from Purdue. It was just I thought it was very similar to the women's game where you had the most dominant team, UConn and South Carolina. You had the best players, Kaylin and Zach Edey, and it was just like the best players got theirs 37 and 30, that just the team, the supporting cast just wasn't there.
Yeah.
And the other team executed their game plan to perfection, made Caitlin be inefficient in her scoring, made Purdue incredibly one-dimensional. They shot 7 threes in the entire game. They made Purdue one-dimensional. They made supporting cast beat them with Iowa, and both ended up well for the number 1 overall seed and the 2 most dominant teams in college basketball in their respective genders. So really impressive stuff for UConn, real impressive stuff for South Carolina. I mean, I just don't know what else to say other than absolutely dominant from these 2 schools.
Yeah, absolutely dominant across the board for the champions.
Yeah, no doubt about it. But we do need to talk about some head coaching carousel, because things have been going a little crazy in the men's college basketball game with these head coaches. So we now welcome on Eric, Sam's brother. Surely you guys will remember him from the bracket show when we first got our brackets. Fitting, we start the tournament and end the tournament with Eric as our guest. But of course, as our resident Hog fan, we do have to touch base on the head coaching carousel, because it kind of went crazy over the weekend. It started with Andy Enfield leaving USC to go to SMU, get in the ACC with SMU. Then Eric Musselman, of course, leaves Arkansas to go to USC, and all of that culminates in John Calipari leaving Kentucky to go to Arkansas, a huge fish for the Razorbacks. So I just got to know, Eric, just dump it all out there, because what was going through your mind when this was happening? Because I can tell you what was going through our mind, and it probably pales in comparison as to what was going through yours.
Yeah, well, obviously the last time we met, I was pretty bummed because March Madness is like my favorite time, and Arkansas was not in it. So to say that this past month was not as fun, and then especially when Thursday came around and the news dropped that Musselman was leaving, it definitely was like, damn, this sucks. So, yeah. So Hunter Yurchek, our AD, posted a video. Tim gets on the bus, Musselman turns the thing and, says all aboard. And he goes, "You're still here?" And of course, as a fan base, everyone's like, Musselman got an extension. He's back. That's awesome. Well, now obviously with Calipari and, we know that Muss left. It was actually Hunter Yurchek being a savage saying, "I know you're leaving. No one else knows you're leaving. And so I'm going to post this video and saying, you're still here? Like, you haven't left yet?" So for him to do that as an AD is absolutely
that's ballsy. That's ballsy, though.
At the social media guru that Eric Musselman is. So, it's just been mayhem. So obviously that happens. I was actually out of town this past weekend with some family members and with some of the in-laws who are obviously huge Hog fans, and talking to them, they're like, I think it's Chris Beard, and I agree. And from what I heard, we kind of not gave him a low ball, say, but it was around the Musselman contract. I don't know if it was technically, rejected or whatever it might have been, but from reliable sources and a bunch of the, kind of social media and media outlets, everyone said it was 100% done deal. Beard was going to be our coach. It was set in stone, and then everything fell through. So take that as you please, as if maybe we heard that Calipari was ready to get out. Maybe his agent reached out. I mean, we never know. But, send him an offer. And, what's crazy is everyone thought that with his contract, we were going to have to pay out this massive 33, 37, I don't know the exact number, to leave, when in the contract it was, if he leaves or anything like that, it's nothing, which is great for them because they don't have to pay for firing or whatever. But I mean, I thought there was no way. And the fact that one, he's coming there, two, he's making more than Musselman. I think it's like 7 or 7.5. So he's making less than he was at Kentucky. But the fact that he has a budget of $6 million in NIL is just mind-boggling. So, as myself and Alex, and hopefully you guys can hop on, we'll be eating Tyson chicken dino nuggets until the rest of my life, until we have that national championship, hopefully. But no, it's just been from like Thursday to today has just been insane. Yeah, absolutely insane.
That was going to be my next question: is did you go celebrate with some dino nuggies after he comes over to Fayetteville?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you kind of brushed up on who was kind of being interviewed for the job. Chris Beard, personally from the outside looking in, I was like, okay, decent hire.
Yeah.
But is it really better than better or equivalent to Musselman? I'm like, no. I mean, this guy just took y'all to two Elite Eights, produce a lot of NBA talent.
Yeah.
And then that falls through. Then you get Jerome Tang, who, not gonna lie, thought that was a little wild. K-State didn't have a great year. Haven't been overly impressed with his performance at K-State. Obviously, they kind of had the Cinderella run last year with Marquise Noel leading the charge, but they're still an 8 or 11 seed. I can't remember. So that it just, even when I saw it, I was like, no freaking, like, I'll believe it when I see it, because you said a bunch of guys on Twitter were like, oh, this is happening. And then Calipari, absolutely crazy.
From Chris Beard being, I've never seen where so many of social media Arkansas guys were saying, it's done. He's our coach. He's our guy. It fall through, like you said, going in on the Tang, which he's a player's coach. Like a bunch of old Hog guys apparently knew him, so they were kind of on it, but I wasn't sold. And then, we went down. It got bad. We were looking at Mississippi State of Chris Jans, and we're looking at Darrell Walker, the UALR coach, which is just absurd. Which I also heard from somebody that there was no interview that ever happened, and apparently our AD leaked that to one person within his staff. And that guy told a bunch of media outlets, apparently that guy's gone now. apparently Eurocheck just knows what the hell he's doing. And I took a step back. You saw us on Twitter. I was bashing him. So,
Entering the fan transfer portal is crazy.
Oh, man. And it's not just from the stem of 5 days. It's from football and him not firing Pittman. Obviously, Bobby Petrino's incredible comeback, but that's a whole different thing. So it didn't just stem strictly from Musselman, but it's wild.
Awesome.
Obviously, go ahead.
You were mentioning summoning. Words are hard. You were mentioning some of the names. Who did you want? I'm curious. Like when you were watching this, were you like all in on Beard, or obviously we talked about Tang a little bit. Who did you want?
I really wanted Beard just for the fact that, like, at Texas Tech, he brought him to a Final Four or a final or whatever.
At least an Elite Eight.
Elite Eight, for sure.
Yeah. Obviously brought UALR to the tournament. Went to Texas, obviously, with the, all the assault stuff. That's, a huge negative in regards to, recruiting and stuff like that. So it's like incredible coach, but there's so much negativity that goes along with it. So that was probably my number one. There was just a lot of baggage that came with him, but I don't know. That's who I'd go with. Tang was just, like you said, not extremely proven without almost like a once in a lifetime type of player in their point guard that they had at the time.
Marquise Noel.
Yeah. So
yeah. I got a question. So obviously a lot of guys in the transfer portal from Arkansas. Devo Davis, Trayvon Mark is another one. I know Trayvon Brazil just declared he's not coming back, entering the draft. Does Calipari bring any of them back?
Man, I think Tremont Mark has a good chance if he does want to stay at Arkansas. I mean, people may forget that he was at Houston and was on that Elite Eight Final Four team or whatever. So he's a stud. The funny thing was when Caliph Battle, 2 days before, declared or entered the transfer portal, and then it came out that Calipari was our coach, he tweeted, "Well, damn." So,
that's kind of tough.
Yeah. So I don't know. Devo was in the gym the other day and on Instagram Live blaring the song, "Should I Stay or Should I Go?" You never know. I mean, at the end of the day, Calipari has 6 top 75 freshmen coming in. He's got obviously recruits that or guys that he had from this past year. So you never know. I mean, it's up to Calipari at the end of the day. If he doesn't want any of those guys, then I'm 100% riding with Calipari. I mean, I love Tremont, and that'd probably be the only one that I'd stick my neck out for. But yeah.
Yeah, there's been a lot of guys decommitting from Kentucky. No shocker there. Aaron Bradshaw entering transfer portal. I know Carter Knox is a 4 or 5 star. He actually had Arkansas in his top 5, I want to say. He played in overtime elite last year. 6'6" stud. So I don't be shocked if he's rocking a Razorbacks uniform next year.
Yeah, from what I've read, like I said, the 6 recruits, I think there were 2 that were extremely likely to follow. They have some 16-year-old that's I don't even know. I think top 5 out of this class. That his dad was we're with Calipari regardless. And this was right after they lost to Oakland. But you never know. I mean, it depends on so many factors of where he's from and if he loves Kentucky for different reasons other than Calipari, if his parents are close. I mean, there's a million reasons. So it'll be interesting. But, I mean, like you said, it's Calipari gets those young dudes into the NBA. And at the end of the day, they'd love to win a championship, but they'd also love to make millions by 19. So we'll see.
Yeah, the guy you were talking about was Jaden Quaintance,
I think is how you say it. Yeah. So since he's 16, he will 100% have to be in college for 2 years before he gets, because he has got to be 18 or 19, I guess, technically. But
yeah, I know. Now, I mean, does this? So if you do you have 0 players on your roster right now? Is it literally 0? It is.
We have
0.
One walk on. One walk on.
So now, I mean, in order to fill a team for next season, does that mean that Calipari is automatically better than Muss in the transfer portal? Who's the better importer? It might have to be Calipari.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive. Well, man, I mean, you got to be just excited out of your boots. That's pretty fun stuff. Now, I mean, what does Kentucky do, right? They are looking for a head coach. I mean, is there enough money to be able to pry Dan Hurley away from UConn? What are you thinking there? Are there any names that make sense in your mind as our SEC correspondent?
Yeah, I think, I'm on a bunch of different boards and stuff like that, and got some people that are on the Kentucky boards, and it's funny, you can see them right when it was kind of announced, them being yes, he's gone, good riddance, can't wait to play you. And then they've slowly kind of turned towards, oh shit. There may not be another person that's of that caliber or just even close. I think originally, like you said, it was Dan Hurley who man, you go back to back. I think UConn's going to figure out a way to get funding for him never to leave. I think Nate Oates was another guy that whenever his name popped out, he tweeted like within an hour and was like, University of Alabama is my home. Like, I'm not leaving. We built something. I've seen like Bruce Pearl's name, but I think he's got it pretty good at Auburn as well. I don't know. I don't see
Stand-up
him.
guy.
And then I've seen Billy Donovan leaving the Bulls and coming back, but I think he's way past his prime. So I mean, I don't know. They could throw the bag at Chris Beard, I guess, if they want to. But
Speaking of stand-up guys.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's been fun to watch that side of it too.
Yeah, no doubt. I think another name I think that should be thrown in there is Scott Drew, with Baylor.
Yeah.
Which I've seen a lot of Scott Drew to Kentucky, and then Jerome Tang back to Baylor, who was one of Scott Drew's assistants when they won their natty. But yeah, I mean, it feels like the SEC is what the Big East was last year, with Ed Cooley jumping around and all these schools looking for new head coaches. One name I also heard is getting some steam. Fran McCaffrey, Kentucky. It's getting steam for sure.
Oh golly, that's a good
one can only hope. We got any other questions, Tim?
No, man. It's gonna be a wild time over the next couple days in Fayetteville. Does Kentucky come to Fayetteville this year?
We don't have a schedule yet, but normally they try and do a home and home just because there used to be obviously so much of that drama. But I think they try to make it happen.
Yeah, I think it's worth it this year.
That's gonna be box office, but yeah, I'm good. You got any?
Eric, final thoughts? Take us home.
Oh, they he's supposed to land. I heard tomorrow they're supposed to have the press conference at 6, open the doors of Bud Walton at 5 to the public. So your boy might be there, might be sending some pics over, and hopefully he's wearing a nice old red shoe for what we call now the Big Red Nation. We're taking it from Kentucky.
Big Red Nation.
Big
Nebraska may be fighting you for that. Go Big Red Nation. I think it might work. They can coexist, right?
Well, once Nebraska wins the March Madness game, let me know, and then maybe they can have that.
Yeah,
Nebraska catching straight.
Don't think I'll be letting. It's low hanging fruit, man. It's just they are just an absolute punching bag.
I'm just happy it's not Iowa. That's all.
Yeah,
no, but I appreciate y'all having me on. It's been a crazy 5 days, and hopefully this transfer portal gets moving because we need players bad, or I may be out there next year with my eligibility.
That's what Craigslist ad. Players needed. Oh man, awesome. Yeah. Well, thanks again, Eric, for coming on. We appreciate it, and we'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good. Appreciate y'all.
Thanks, Eric.
All right. Special thank you to Eric for joining us once again. A pretty good conversation about the coaching carousel and how some of us get to be happy and some of us do not. But
we're the ones that don't.
Yeah. So, by the way, in case you're wondering.
Just kidding. Woo pig.
A turncoat. But before we wrap up the episode, we did get a question. This one from Jaron Kirkendall.
There we go.
Let's go. This question is: UConn the most dominant team we've seen in college basketball?
Yeah, so obviously this is a little limited to my 25 years. Well, not 25. I haven't been watching ball since I was born. So let's go 20 years.
You don't love ball.
I know.
You don't love
ball. Dude, I gotta say, yeah, man. I mean, they won every game this tournament run by 13 or more. So when this question got asked, I was like, okay, let's really think about the best teams we've seen from our watching of college basketball. Obviously, first one that comes up is that Kentucky Wildcats team that went 31-0, had freaking anybody that's everybody in the current NBA. I mean, they had Devin Booker, and the Harrison twins, Tyler Ulis, Cat, Willie Cauley-Stein, Alex Poitras, Derek Willis, Trey Lyles, Dakari Johnson were kind of the big names. They didn't they like get upset in like the first couple rounds, I want to say.
I think they lost to Wisconsin
They
in
did.
the Elite Eight,
Yep,
right?
yep. It was an Elite Eight loss. So, wow. Speaking of Calipari, so 38-1 was their record, but they're not undefeated. And you know who is? Well, not undefeated, but back-to-back champions.
They didn't win. That's that's the
That they didn't win. Hurley, back-to-back champions, looking dominant as ever. Not the thing that I'm most impressed about this UConn team this year is they just reloaded, which is incredible. So there's been a hell of a lot of good teams over the years, but I think this UConn team might take the cake, man.
Yeah, this one's a little interesting because I think one of the things to talk about when you look back is just like who had, because they were UConn finished what 37-3. So trying to see who finished with less losses, and obviously there are only a handful in the past 20 or so years. And it's really hard to say because the first one with less losses was Baylor in 2021.
Yeah.
They had 2 losses that year.
Forgot about
right,
them.
and they were absolutely dominant. But the thing about it, though, they weren't even the number 1 overall seed in the tournament because Gonzaga was undefeated that year. So, they ended up being the best team. They ended up being the most dominant team because they beat Gonzaga in the title game. But it's really hard to be the most dominant team of all time when you weren't the most dominant team throughout most of the season that year. So I don't think it can be Baylor. You keep going down. I mean, nothing is screaming out to me here. And then you reach the 2012 Kentucky.
Yeah.
And I think that was the first team in my mind where it was like, okay, maybe them. Because this was Anthony Davis,
This
right?
was Davis, Michael Kidd-Gilchrist,
Yes.
Marquise Teague, Kyle Widgeter.
Oh, yeah. Is it
Terrence
Wiltshire?
Whitaker? I don't even know.
Wiltshire? Yeah, I think
The guy who transferred to
Gonzaga, right?
Gonzaga.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, but all of that to say, this is the first one for me that gives UConn a run for their money. But I can't look at this in a vacuum. You have to take last year into consideration and the 2-year run of being untouchable in March is absurd. Their closest game they played, I believe, was against St. Mary's last year, if I'm not mistaken. And I want to see what that margin of victory was. 15. It was 15 last year. I think that was their closest game, was 15 last year. This year was 13.
Yeah.
Was their closest. Do you know who that was against?
I don't.
Oh, I guess they beat Purdue by what? I just had it up.
This hard.
Yeah, we're struggling with UConn's, but they beat Purdue by 15. UConn's closest game in the tournament this year. Let's take a look. Beat Stetson by a lot, beat Northwestern by a lot, beat San Diego State by 30, UConn by 25, or Illinois by 25.
Maybe I was told wrong information.
14. This is an exhilarating end to the podcast. Hope everybody's enjoying it.
They stopped listening.
Yeah, probably.
I'm sure.
UConn, I mean, so
Stetson the only one.
Stetson, they beat by 39, Northwestern by 17, San Diego State by 30, Illinois by 25, Alabama by 14, and Purdue by 50. So 14 was their closest. And last year I believe the closest was St. Mary's.
That's so stupid.
Yeah, it was. So all that to say, this 2-year run is the most dominant we have ever seen. Not a single-digit game in March. That is as dominant as it gets. So I think you just have to answer yes on that. You just do.
Yeah, absolutely. Crazy. It was fun watching.
It was fun watching, especially taking out Purdue, LS Big Ten. Quick side tangent. I never understood the rooting for conference. I hate everyone else in the Big Ten. I want to see them all lose. And I was very happy to see Purdue lose. I'm
sure you loved Illinois. The Illinois loss too.
Oh yeah, when they beat the crap at Illinois 30-0 run, like, oh, that was awesome. Yeah, so that's my quick side tangent.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
that is going to wrap it up for episode 127 for the college basketball season, both men's and women's. One that we will never forget behind the dominance of UConn and South Carolina, the fanfare of Caitlin Clark and her incredible career as a Hawkeye, something I know you and I will never, ever forget as fans of Iowa. It's really bittersweet to say goodbye to the season. It's been so much fun covering it, so much fun covering March, and so much fun watching the sport that we love, the colleges we love, the conferences we love. It was awesome, and it sucks that it's over, and all we have to look forward to is the NBA, and then eventually some meaningful baseball will come around for the general public to care about. But yeah, it sucks. And thanks for following the season with us. And a huge shout out to Caitlin Clark for being the greatest Hawkeye to ever do it. One of one, real special stuff, and has made a new lover of the game in me and you.
For sure. Millions,
half the damn country, it seems. But follow the podcast on X, TikTok, and Instagram at crunchtime_pod. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube, Crunch Time with the N326 duo. But the clock has run out on this episode, and we'll see you in the next one on Crunch Time.
Shout out Eric and Woo Pig, baby.